They sang about love, heartbreak, and small-town values, the very soul of country music. But behind the charm and cowboy hats, some of Nashville's biggest stars showed a shocking lack of respect for the very people who made them famous. From rude meet and greets to cold dismissals on stage, these artists forgot that fame means nothing without fans. This is 10 country superstars who treated their fans terribly, the other side of fame. 1. Jason Aldean. At first glance, Jason Aldean embodied the spirit of modern country, rugged, unapologetically masculine, and fiercely loyal to his small-town roots. His songs like Dirt Road Anthem and She's Country painted him as the voice of everyday folks. But behind the chart-topping hits and sold-out stadiums, Aldean's relationship with his fans took a darker turn, one that revealed how fame can erode the very humility that built a career. It started subtly. Reports surfaced from meet-and-greet events where fans described Aldean as cold and distant. What was supposed to be a dream encounter often turned into a 2-second handshake and a forced smile. Some fans who had paid hundreds of dollars for VIP access shared online that Aldean barely made eye contact or said a word. To many, it felt less like meeting a country hero and more like a transaction. Then came the controversies that cemented his reputation as one of country's rudest stars. In 2015, Aldean attended a Halloween party wearing blackface, an act that sparked nationwide outrage. His attempt to brush off the scandal as no big deal only made matters worse. Fans who once saw him as a proud representative of country values now felt deeply betrayed. Social media lit up with disappointment and disbelief, and even longtime supporters said they could no longer stand behind him. But the most telling moment came on stage. During multiple concerts, Aldean was accused of cutting shows short, walking off mid-performance, or showing visible irritation when fans tried to interact. One viral clip showed him storming off stage in Hartford, Connecticut, after a minor technical issue, leaving the crowd stunned and angry. Another incident saw him barely acknowledging fans waving signs or shouting song requests. The once charismatic frontman seemed disconnected, as though the energy of his audience no longer mattered. Some defended him, pointing to the pressures of fame and relentless touring schedules. Others saw something different, a man who'd grown too big for the people who got him there. In a genre built on humility, gratitude, and connection, Aldean's attitude stood out like a sore thumb. Nashville insiders whispered that he'd become the guy who forgot the fans, a dangerous label in an industry that lives and dies by loyalty. To his credit, Aldean later tried to rebuild his image, opening up about personal struggles and expressing gratitude during interviews. Yet, for many, the damage was done. Country music has always celebrated authenticity, and when that authenticity cracks, fans rarely forget. Jason Aldean remains a superstar, but his story is a cautionary tale. No matter how high you climb, treating your fans poorly can make your fall even harder. 2. Miranda Lambert. For years, Miranda Lambert stood as one of country music's most authentic voices, fiery, fearless, and deeply relatable. Her songs about heartbreak, revenge, and resilience resonated with millions who saw her as a symbol of realness in a world of glitter and pretense. Fans adored her for being raw and unapologetic. But in recent years, that honesty turned into something harsher, crossing the line from confidence to condescension and from candid to cruel. The turning point came during a 2023 concert in Las Vegas. Lambert stopped her show mid-song to call out a group of fans taking selfies. "These girls are worried about their selfie and not listening to the song," she said coldly into the mic. The crowd fell silent, shocked at her tone. The women she scolded were visibly embarrassed. They had spent hundreds of dollars on front-row seats. When videos of the moment went viral, the internet erupted. Some defended her right to demand respect during a heartfelt ballad. But for many, the image of Lambert lecturing fans who were simply excited to see her marked a new level of arrogance. That wasn't an isolated moment. Over time, stories began circulating about Lambert's short temper during meet and greets. Several fans shared that she seemed bored and dismissive, offering little more than a forced smile and a quick pose before moving on. Others recalled being snapped at for minor things, holding a phone too long, asking for an autograph, or trying to make small talk. The woman who once seemed like the people's champion had become someone who appeared irritated by her own audience. Industry insiders have whispered for years that Miranda's fame hardened her edges. Divorce, constant media scrutiny, and years under the Nashville spotlight reportedly made her less patient, more guarded, and often defensive. Some close to her say it's self-protection, a wall built after too much intrusion. But to the fans who remember the warm, down-to-earth singer from The House That Built Me, it feels like something was lost along the way. When Lambert finally addressed the selfie incident, her words didn't help. Instead of a heartfelt apology, she doubled down, saying she wanted people to be in the moment. It was a fair point, but one delivered without empathy. The backlash continued, with many fans declaring they would never attend her concerts again. Miranda Lambert's story is a study in contradiction. A country queen who built her empire on emotional connection, but let frustration and fame chip away at it. Her voice still moves hearts, her songwriting remains powerful, yet the bond between her and her fans feels fractured. In the end, it's a reminder that no matter how fiercely independent a star may be, the real power in country music lies not in fame, but in the fans who believe in you. 3. Toby Keith. Toby Keith once embodied everything fans loved about modern country music: patriotic, proud, and larger than life. Songs like Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue and Beer for My Horses turned him into an American icon. But as his fame exploded, so did his reputation for arrogance and a temper that could flare at any moment. Behind the stage lights and the flag-waving bravado, Keith's relationship with his fans became one of the most controversial in Nashville history. It began with the stories that surfaced from his early tours. Fans who had waited hours to meet him often described him as rude and dismissive. One woman recalled how she nervously asked him for an autograph, only to be told, "Make it quick, I've got better things to do." Others shared that Keith often refused photos or ignored them completely. For a man who sang about hard-working Americans, his treatment of those very people didn't always match the image. Then, there were the infamous concert outbursts. Toby Keith was known for his fiery onstage persona, but sometimes that fire crossed the line. In one viral moment, he stopped a performance mid-song to yell at a fan who had been waving a sign too close to the stage, calling him an idiot before security escorted the fan out. In another, he cursed at a heckler before smashing his microphone stand and walking off. While his defenders claimed, "That's just Toby being Toby," others saw an artist who had grown intolerant of the very people filling his seats. Keith's drinking persona, a key part of his brand, also played into the tension. Some insiders claimed that his unpredictable moods often stemmed from too much alcohol before shows. Several fans even reported being insulted or mocked by Keith during his performances, as if the line between country grit and personal disrespect had disappeared entirely. What made these moments sting even more was Toby Keith's refusal to apologize. When confronted in interviews, he typically brushed off complaints as people being too sensitive. In his mind, he wasn't being rude, just real. But that attitude only deepened the divide. Country fans expect their stars to be bold, yes, but they also expect humility, warmth, and respect. Keith's approach began to feel less authentic rebellion and more self-indulgence. To his credit, in later years, as health challenges emerged, Keith softened publicly. He became more reflective, occasionally thanking fans in heartfelt statements. Yet for many, the damage had already been done. His story stands as a cautionary tale about what happens when confidence turns to contempt, when the rebel spirit that once drew fans in becomes the very thing that pushes them away. In the end, Toby Keith's career remains legendary, but the shadow of his arrogance lingers. For a man who built his fame singing to the heart of America, forgetting to treat that heart with kindness was perhaps his greatest mistake. 4. Faith Hill. For years, Faith Hill was country music's golden girl, poised, elegant, and blessed with one of the most powerful voices in Nashville. Together with her husband, Tim McGraw, she represented the ideal country couple: talent, love, and class. Fans saw her as warm, wholesome, and grateful. But in one unforgettable moment, the picture-perfect image cracked, and millions witnessed a side of Faith Hill they never expected to see. The incident occurred in 2007 during a concert in Lafayette, Louisiana. As Faith and Tim performed, a fan in the crowd reached out and touched McGraw's jeans, apparently too intimately. Faith stopped mid-performance, pointed directly at the woman, and scolded her in front of thousands. "Somebody needs to teach you some class, my friend. You don't go grabbing somebody else's husband's anything." The audience gasped. The fan looked mortified. In seconds, the affectionate country sweetheart had transformed into a furious wife defending her territory. The clips spread like wildfire across the internet, replayed on news outlets and social media. Some applauded her for standing up for herself, but many fans felt uncomfortable watching the outburst. What struck people wasn't just the anger. It was the way she publicly humiliated a fan who may have acted impulsively, not maliciously. For many, that moment marked a turning point. Faith Hill was no longer the gracious icon they thought they knew. Reports soon followed of similar behavior at meet-and-greet sessions. Several attendees described her as aloof or condescending, noting that she often seemed disinterested in conversations and eager to move on. Others recounted moments where she refused photos if she didn't like the lighting or makeup situation, something that fans, especially in the era of selfies, found disappointing. Insiders have suggested that Hill's perfectionism, the same trait that made her such a stellar performer, may have also fed into her temper. Those close to her say she struggles to let go of control, especially when she feels disrespected or vulnerable. On stage, that control had always been her armor. Off stage, it became a wall separating her from the fans who adored her. To her credit, Faith later tried to soften her image, often appearing more relaxed and approachable in interviews. Still, the Lafayette incident never truly faded. It became a reminder that even the most beloved stars can have breaking points, and that one angry moment can undo years of goodwill. Faith Hill remains one of country music's most gifted vocalists and enduring figures, but her story highlights the fragile bond between celebrity and audience. Fans don't just love the music, they love the person behind it. When that person lashes out, even once, it leaves a scar. In a genre that values humility and grace, Faith's lapse of composure was a painful lesson in how quickly admiration can turn to disillusionment. 5. Blake Shelton. Blake Shelton has long been one of country music's most recognizable faces. Charming, funny, and irresistibly charismatic. With his southern drawl and quick wit, he captured not just the hearts of country fans, but millions of television viewers through The Voice. To many, he seemed like the perfect mix of cowboy humor and small-town sincerity. But behind the charm, Shelton developed a reputation for being shockingly rude, both online and off. And many fans began to question whether the nice guy persona was just a performance. It all started with Twitter. Shelton built a massive following thanks to his candid, often unfiltered posts. At first, his rough humor seemed refreshing, a country star who didn't hide behind PR polish. But soon, the jokes turned into jabs. He began mocking fans who disagreed with him, calling them idiots, morons, and fake country fans. In one infamous exchange, Shelton responded to a fan's criticism of his music with, "You wouldn't know good country if it hit you in the face with a whiskey bottle." What once felt like honesty now came across as arrogance, and the people who once adored him started turning away. His behavior at live shows didn't help. Several concertgoers reported that Shelton often appeared visibly drunk during performances, slurring words, missing lyrics, and snapping sarcastic comments at fans who shouted requests. In one instance, he mocked an audience member for holding up a sign requesting an older song, saying, "We're not doing that old crap tonight." The laughter that followed wasn't from joy. It was nervous, uneasy. Fans had paid to see the Blake Shelton they loved from TV, the friendly jokester, not the man ridiculing them from the stage. Even backstage, reports of Shelton's mood swings began to surface. Former tour staff described him as unpredictable, generous one minute, cutting and dismissive the next. Those who worked closely with him claimed fame and alcohol had amplified his worst impulses. The Blake Shelton that fans thought they knew, humble, approachable, grateful, had seemingly given way to a celebrity who saw himself as untouchable. To his credit, Blake has occasionally acknowledged his behavior, joking in interviews that he's a jerk sometimes when he drinks too much. But the humor does little to erase the sting of his words. Country music, perhaps more than any genre, is built on emotional connection. Fans want to feel that their heroes are one of them. When Blake Shelton began mocking those very people, the illusion of camaraderie broke. Still, Shelton remains wildly successful, with hit records and a loyal base that forgives easily. Yet, beneath that success lies a truth that even his biggest supporters can't ignore. Fame and wit can win fans, but respect is what keeps them. Blake's story serves as a warning that charisma can't hide cruelty forever, and when the jokes go too far, even laughter can turn to silence. 6. Travis Tritt. In the 1990s, Travis Tritt was one of country music's brightest stars, a gritty voice with outlaw swagger, carrying the torch of Southern rock-infused country. He built his image around authenticity, rebellion, and heart. Fans loved his no-nonsense attitude and songs like It's a Great Day to Be Alive that celebrated everyday resilience. But somewhere along the way, that rebellious energy turned into impatience, and the outlaw spirit he was known for began alienating the very people who once idolized him. Concertgoers were among the first to notice. While many country artists thrive on fan interaction, Tritt was often short-tempered on stage. Numerous fans have shared experiences where he snapped at them for cheering too loudly, holding up signs, or shouting song requests. At one infamous show in the early 2000s, he stopped mid-performance, pointed at a fan near the front row, and demanded security remove them, simply because they kept yelling his name between songs. The audience fell silent as Tritt muttered, "Some people just don't know how to behave." What was supposed to be a moment of connection turned into a public scolding. Stories like this began to multiply. Fans at meet and greets recalled being brushed off with barely a word or eye contact. One fan wrote online, "I grew up on his music. Meeting him was supposed to be special, but he looked right through me, like I didn't exist." For many, the charm that once felt rugged and rebellious now came across as arrogance. Part of Tritt's reputation for rudeness came from his outspoken nature. He has never shied away from expressing strong opinions, especially on social and political issues. Over the years, his blunt remarks on social media alienated large portions of his fan base. Some agreed with his stance, but many felt disappointed by his tone, which often came off as dismissive or condescending toward those who disagreed. "I tell it like it is," Tritt once said in an interview, defending his online behavior. But to many fans, that honesty had crossed the line into hostility. Even his peers in Nashville began to take notice. Behind closed doors, Tritt earned a reputation for being difficult to work with, demanding, and unwilling to compromise. Some insiders claimed he carried an inflated sense of self-importance, convinced that his legacy gave him the right to speak and act without restraint. While that rebellious attitude once set him apart from the polished Nashville machine, it eventually made him seem bitter, a man fighting ghosts instead of embracing gratitude. To his credit, Tritt has moments of humility. In recent interviews, he's spoken fondly about his career and occasionally thanked fans for sticking with him. Yet the scars of past behavior linger. The country world forgives easily, but it doesn't forget. For a genre rooted in heart and connection, Travis Tritt's story stands as a cautionary reminder. Being an outlaw is one thing, but losing touch with the people who believed in you is another kind of rebellion altogether. 7. Gretchen Wilson. When Gretchen Wilson burst onto the country scene in 2004 with her smash hit Redneck Woman, she was hailed as a breath of fresh air, raw, fearless, and unapologetically herself. Fans adored her rebellious spirit, her working-class authenticity, and her defiant pride in being one of them. She wasn't a polished Nashville princess. She was the kind of artist who drank beer with her audience and spoke her mind. But as fame grew, that same toughness that once felt empowering began to turn sour. Gretchen Wilson's story became one of wasted goodwill, of a star whose temper and attitude toward fans and crew alike tarnished her hard-won reputation. The first cracks appeared not long after her breakthrough. Behind the scenes, Wilson's fiery personality often clashed with tour staff and promoters. Reports circulated that she had a short fuse and was prone to angry outbursts, sometimes directed at fans who didn't act the way she wanted. One concertgoer recalled being publicly scolded after trying to get her attention from the front row. "She told me to shut up and sit down," the fan wrote online. "And I remember thinking, this is the woman who sang about being proud to be like us?" In 2018, Wilson's behavior made national headlines when she was arrested at a Connecticut airport for causing a minor disturbance that escalated into a confrontation with police and passengers. While the incident didn't directly involve fans, it reinforced a public image of aggression and volatility. For many who had admired her blue-collar honesty, it felt like confirmation that fame had fueled her anger rather than her empathy. Stories from meet and greets didn't help either. Fans described her as unpredictable, warm and funny one day, then cold and dismissive the next. Some said she appeared intoxicated during fan interactions, offering curt remarks or rolling her eyes when people asked questions. Others recalled her openly mocking requests for autographs or photos, as if the adoration of her supporters had become a burden. To those close to Wilson, these weren't signs of arrogance, but of exhaustion. She had risen to fame almost overnight, with relentless touring schedules and the pressure to live up to her outlaw woman image. But for the public, explanations mattered little. The Gretchen Wilson they met in person wasn't the relatable redneck woman they'd fallen in love with. She was someone who seemed angry at the world, including her own fans. In later interviews, Wilson admitted she had struggled with burnout and didn't handle fame the best way. She took several breaks from touring, saying she wanted to find herself again. Yet, by then, much of the damage was done. Once the champion of ordinary country fans, she had become a symbol of how quickly authenticity can curdle into hostility. Gretchen Wilson's rise and fall remind us that country music's greatest strength is its closeness to its audience. When that bond breaks, when fans feel dismissed or disrespected, even the loudest anthems start to sound hollow. For the woman who once gave a voice to redneck pride, losing touch with her fans was the one thing her music couldn't make right. 8. Kenny Chesney. For decades, Kenny Chesney has been one of the most bankable stars in country music, a laid-back island cowboy whose songs about freedom, summer love, and simple living defined an entire era. Tracks like No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problems, and When the Sun Goes Down made him a superstar. To fans, he represented escapism, humility, and good vibes, the kind of guy who'd raise a beer with you on a beach somewhere. But as his fame reached stadium-sized proportions, cracks began to appear behind that easygoing smile. Beneath the flip-flops and tan lines was an artist increasingly detached from the people who made him a legend. Fans began noticing that Chesney's concerts, though massive and well-produced, often felt impersonal. Meet and greets that should have been dream moments for lifelong supporters became rushed, transactional experiences. Several VIP attendees, who had paid hundreds for a few minutes with their idol, described him as cold, distant, and mechanical. One fan wrote online, "I waited 20 years to meet Kenny, and he didn't even look up from the camera when the picture was taken." Others recalled being instructed not to talk too long or not to ask for autographs, an interaction that felt more like a photo assembly line than a connection with a country hero. Even on stage, Chesney's once warm energy began to feel strained. During his 2013 tour, fans noticed he barely interacted with the crowd beyond Hearst banter. Some complained that he skipped fan-favorite songs to make time for newer hits, ignoring shouted requests. A few even accused him of walking off stage early during shows, citing sound problems or exhaustion. While production staff defended him, saying he performed grueling schedules under intense pressure, the perception among fans was clear. The old Kenny, who played his heart out for small-town crowds, was gone. Perhaps the most telling episode came during a meet-and-greet controversy in the late 2010s. When hundreds of fans were left waiting hours because Chesney arrived late and stayed for only a few minutes, disappointment turned into public outrage. Social media lit up with comments like, "We stood in line all day for a 2-second photo. He didn't even smile." For many, that incident symbolized how far he drifted from his humble beginnings. Insiders say Chesney's massive success changed the dynamic. Managing a global fan base of millions, endless touring, and the pressure of maintaining a perfect nice guy image took a toll. He reportedly became guarded, wary of being overwhelmed by obsessive fans or constant media attention. But to those who loved him for his down-to-earth persona, those explanations didn't matter. The connection felt broken. To his credit, Kenny Chesney has since made efforts to reconnect. In recent years, he's spoken publicly about how much he values his audience and even adjusted his tours to include more intimate shows. Yet, for some longtime fans, the charm that once felt spontaneous now feels carefully rehearsed. Kenny Chesney's journey reflects the price of superstardom in country music. His songs still speak of barefoot freedom and open hearts. But the man behind the microphone sometimes seems miles away from those simple truths. In the end, the beach may still be his stage, but the bond with his fans, once as warm as the sun, has faded into something cooler, more distant, and far less personal. 9. Luke Bryan. Luke Bryan rose to fame as the face of modern country's good time spirit, the smiling Georgia boy with charm to spare, a hitmaker whose energy lit up stadiums from Nashville to Los Angeles. Songs like Country Girl, Shake It For Me, and Play It Again made him the king of feel-good country pop. His charisma seemed endless, his connection with fans unshakable. But behind that polished grin and polished persona lies a side of Luke Bryan that many fans have found surprisingly cold, even disrespectful, a reminder that sometimes fame dulls the very warmth that once drew people in. The cracks began to show in the mid-2010s, when several fans accused Bryan of rude and dismissive behavior during meet-and-greet events. Those lucky enough to win exclusive backstage passes often walked away disappointed. One fan recalled, he didn't even say hello, just smiled for the camera and moved on. Others reported that he ignored attempts at small talk or rolled his eyes when someone took too long. To the average concertgoer, those moments might seem trivial, but for fans who had adored him for years, they felt like betrayal. But the incident that truly changed public perception came during a live concert in 2016. A fan near the front row held up their phone for a selfie while Luke performed. Instead of leaning in or laughing it off, as many stars do, Bryan snapped. He abruptly stopped singing, reached down, and shoved the fan's phone away, yelling, "Put that damn thing down!" Video of the outburst quickly went viral, and while some defended his frustration over constant filming, others saw arrogance and aggression in his reaction. The fun-loving Luke Bryan had turned into a performer who seemed to resent the people paying to see him. That wasn't the only controversy. In another performance, he slapped a fan's hand away after being lightly touched during a song. Though he later claimed it was a misunderstanding, the clip painted a different picture, a star who had grown intolerant of any unscripted fan interaction. Even more troubling, fans began noticing a growing sense of detachment at his shows. What once felt spontaneous and joyful now seemed staged and distant, as if Bryan were just going through the motions. Industry insiders have long hinted that Bryan struggles with the pressures of constant touring and fame. He's admitted to exhaustion and burnout, even confessing that sometimes the fun part disappears. Still, many fans feel he's lost touch with the humility that made him famous. The man who once danced barefoot on small-town stages now appears to view fans less as friends and more as an obstacle between him and the spotlight. To his credit, Luke Bryan has since made gestures to mend his image, meeting fans at charity events, signing autographs for children, and joking about his temper on American Idol. But the shadow of those onstage incidents lingers. In country music, fans expect their stars to stay grounded, to remember where they came from. Luke Bryan's story is a sharp reminder that charm can fade when fame outgrows humility. The same smile that won over America can feel hollow if it's no longer meant for the people who believed in it. 10. Tanya Tucker. Tanya Tucker was never meant to blend in. Bursting onto the country scene at just 13 with her haunting hit Delta Dawn, she became a phenomenon, the wild child of Nashville, fearless and fiery, with a voice that carried both innocence and danger. Fans loved her for her rebellious streak, her refusal to play by the rules. But as her fame stretched over decades, that same rebellious energy began turning inward. The outlaw attitude that once felt thrilling became abrasive, and Tucker's long, stormy relationship with her fans turned into one of country music's most complicated legacies. In her early years, Tanya's charisma was electric, bold, unpredictable, and magnetic. But behind the charm was a temper as legendary as her voice. Those who worked on her tours described her as volatile, sometimes kind and generous, other times explosive. She was known to cancel shows at the last minute, often without explanation. Fans would arrive at packed venues only to be told that Tanya wasn't feeling up to performing. For many, it was a heartbreak, a reminder that the star they adored seemed to play by her own rules, no matter the disappointment it caused. Meet and greet sessions were equally unpredictable. Some fans described her as warm and engaging, while others recalled being met with eye rolls or curt responses. "It was like she couldn't wait to get away from us," one fan wrote after waiting in line for over 2 hours at a fairground show. Tanya's wild reputation, fueled by her turbulent love life, substance struggles, and tabloid fame, often spilled over into her public interactions. She could be charming one minute, scathing the next. For fans, loving Tanya Tucker sometimes meant bracing for the unpredictable. One notorious moment came in the late 1990s, when a fan threw a small gift on stage, a teddy bear wrapped in a bow. Instead of smiling or thanking them, Tanya kicked it aside, muttering something under her breath. The incident was small, but symbolic. A snapshot of an artist who had grown hardened, perhaps weary of constant attention. "She used to sing for the people," one concertgoer recalled. "Now it feels like she's singing at us, not to us." Industry insiders suggest that Tucker's volatile relationship with fame, starting so young and living under scrutiny for decades, shaped her guarded, often defiant attitude toward fans. Fame didn't just age her, it wore her down. In interviews, she occasionally hinted at regret, admitting that she hadn't always handled her career or her fans with grace. But as with everything Tanya, even remorse came wrapped in defiance. In later years, Tucker found redemption with her 2019 comeback album, While I'm Livin', which reminded the world of her immense talent and resilience. She appeared more grounded, more reflective, yet the edge remained. Tanya Tucker never fully shed her reputation for being difficult, and perhaps she never wanted to. Her story is that of a woman who gave her soul to country music and demanded the world accept her, flaws and all. But for many fans, the sting remains. The woman who once embodied the heart of outlaw country sometimes seemed to forget the outlaws who loved her back. In the end, Tanya Tucker remains both a legend and a lesson. Talent can make you immortal, but kindness is what keeps people standing in your crowd.